Hello, my friends. Pastor Rick Malloy here, Truth Pastor TV. I want to talk to you today about drugs. You know, when I was born in '57. When I was about 10 years old, my mom and dad sat my brother and I down and had the big talk about drugs. I remember my mom especially. Don't be on that pot. Don't be on that heroin and the cocaine. That's you'll go crazy, kill people. Along with a half hour of other ranting and ravings about how drugs ruin your life and so on and so forth. I remember I ran away from home. I started running away when I was about 11. Used to run to my aunt and uncle's in Brantford, Ontario, and the police would bring me back and so on and so forth. But I remember the first time I ever smoked weed, and then a couple of times after that I tried it, and I said, what's the big fuss about? Like drugs. I mean, they lied to me. This is great. This is like, this is the bee's knees. So, acid came along. I tried it, had a great time, snorted a little cocaine, when I was 14 and a half, had a great time. And then, I got into the speed. And then when I tried injected heroin for the first time, I was in 15 going on 16, and I became an incident addict. Now, I ended up going to jail, trying to feed that habit, and I won't get into that, but I think back now, and I think maybe if my parents wouldn't have lied to me about marijuana being the same as heroin, I might not have ever become a junkie. And I struggled with addiction for many years, up until about 24 years ago when my boys were born. And I mean, I still smoke cannabis and use cannabis products, and psilocybin, magic mushrooms, peyote, ayahuasca, but all things natural, things that God gave us free of charge. And there's a reason for that. I mean, cannabis has so many uses, not just to give us a longer life, but we have an endocannabinoid system, which is receptors in our brain and our body for this plant. And I don't care what kind of ailment you have, everything from irritable bowel disease to Alzheimer's, things like cannabis and magic mushrooms, schizophrenia, stuff like that. Magic mushrooms and peyote and stuff have been proven to help us. So God gave us a lot of natural wonders in plants, and I wonder now if my parents had told me the truth, if they had known the truth. I don't know if they knew, if they'd ever smoked pot. I don't think they ever did, but would they have told us the truth? Because, when Harry Ainslinger, who was with the DEA in the 50s and 60s, went after the war on drugs, reefer madness and all the other bullshit that was around at that time, maybe if I had been told the truth, I wouldn't have got to the point where I tried heroin thinking it was all bullshit like everybody said. Now, there's a big difference between today and the 60s and the early 70s. Because back then, drugs were drugs. They were real drugs. and most of it was good. Um, but today, you have stuff made out of, I mean, heroin isn't pure heroin anymore. It's fentanyl and OxyContin and garbage from under the sink, and speed back then was speed. It's not stuff made out of drain cleaners and ephedrine and garbage. I want to warn parents that you've got to have a talk with your kids about drugs, or you have to do it, because nowadays kids get access to these things a lot easier than when I was a kid. But you need to sit them down and you need to tell them the truth. And you have to tell kids, if you're going to try drugs, I prefer that you try it here at home so that we're available in case something happens. You need to show them. You need to look up this stuff on the internet and show them that there's good drugs and there's drugs that are not so good. And the reason why. Don't sit them down and lie to them and tell them that pot is the same as heroin, it's the same as crystal meth, because the first time they try pot, they're going to think you lied to them. And if you lied to them about pot, maybe you're lying to them about crystal meth. Maybe you're lying to them about heroin. Now, I mean, it took me going to jail to get through that initial addiction, but I didn't stop there. I went on. I mean, I used heroin for numerous years, and speed and cocaine, and then crack, and there isn't a drug you can name that I haven't tried. But it was a lot of it through the childhood abuse that I endured. Not to give it an excuse, but that was my excuse. Maybe your kids aren't abused. Maybe they try it for peer pressure or whatever. But you need to talk to your children honestly. If you're not honest about these things, then they're going to find out on their own. And unfortunately, it could be too late. If they don't get to try cannabis first, maybe they just go right to the crystal meth or right to the heroin. That's the first drug that they come across, regardless of their age. The government has to take responsibility here. I mean, the black market wouldn't exist if the government just legalized drugs. What you do with your mind and your body is up to you. And I think people use drugs for a variety of reasons. Some of it so that they don't think about the abuse that they endured, about the loneliness that they have or whatever. And others use it because they just like it. And regardless of the reason for using, everything has to be done in moderation. You have to use responsibly. Some people will, have said that cannabis is addictive. It's not. It might be psychologically. Some people could become psychologically addicted to it, but it's not a physical addiction. It's not like with heroin or crack cocaine or crystal meth or whatever. You become physically addicted to those drugs. And when you withdraw, it's like a pain that's through your entire system. Your entire body hurts. It's not like that with cannabis. But I think if the government gave clean drugs, like, I mean, they already have clinical cocaine, they already have clinical heroin in hospitals available. They have clinical speed. Why don't they make that available to drug addicts and give them a place where they can go and use these drugs? Like in Vancouver, they have a place called Insight on Hastings Street where addicts can go and use their drugs safely. There's nurses, there's people there in case they do OD. They have the Narcan on hand and stuff like that. But if the government did that, if they gave us access and people that want to use, if they gave them access to real good drugs, there wouldn't be the amount of death that there is on the streets of basically every city in the world is going through it. You know, people are putting fentanyl and opioids and garbage from drain cleaners and shit into drugs. And that's what's killing our children and people. Not just children, I mean there's a lot of older addicts around as well. But if the government did that, we wouldn't have to worry about a black market. We wouldn't have to worry about people buying shit that could kill them off Joe Blow on the street corner. So the government has to take some responsibility in what's happening in this world as well. I just want to urge parents, when you talk to your children, when you talk to them, be honest with them. Tell them the good and the bad. Don't just say all drugs are bad, because they're not. I mean, cannabis and psilocybin and peyote has many, many, many medical uses and has been used for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. I want to thank you so much for joining me on Truth Pastor TV. Please be responsible and talk to your children. Don't treat your children like dummies, because kids are a lot smarter than you think. And if you lie to them and they find out that you lied to them, it could lead to their death. And if that happens, don't point the finger at them. Don't point the finger at drugs, because there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. Peace. Much love. See you later.